Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to break down the Week 7 NFL slate on Draftkings and Yahoo. We're going to do a full position-by-position breakdown, quarterback through tight end, talk about all the guys that I have interest in for this Week 7 slate, go through each position, really hit on the guys I'm interested in the most. I'm not going to talk about every single player, just the players that I feel like I'm going to have exposure to in my lineup. So we'll do that for each position, quarterback through tight end. We'll talk about Draftkings pricing, hit on some guys I like on Draftkings. We'll talk about Yahoo as well, hit on some guys I do like over on Yahoo. But before we do get started, as always, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to click the subscribe button as well. I do upload a ton of NFL content to this YouTube channel. I'm getting up about 4 to 5 videos a week for NFL, so I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. Be sure to click the notification bell as well that's next to the subscribe button. That will notify you every time I upload, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do really enjoy my YouTube videos and if they do help you out a lot, I have more content available on Patreon. You can check that out, link down below in the description. If that does interest you, you can see all that I do have to offer over on Patreon. But let's go ahead and take a look at this slate. We will start off at quarterback. So quarterback, when I looked at the pricing at the beginning of the week, there was one guy that really stood out to me, and I think, I still really like that guy. When I'm recording this video Friday, he's definitely most likely going to be in my main lineup. But starting off at the top, you do have Russell Wilson for 8K. Russell Wilson, he's been awesome this season without a doubt. I mean, he's been over 24 DraftKings points in every game so far. He's shown a really high ceiling, has multiple games over 30 DK points. He's 8K though, and that is a pretty hefty price tag to pay for a quarterback. I think I would rather save salary. You do have guys with just as much upside that are cheaper, specifically Kyler Murray. I mean, Kyler Murray, I think, is probably my favorite quarterback on the slate. He's just too cheap in my opinion. He should be priced up there with Josh Allen, with Mahomes. Like, he should be probably 76, 7,700. I think we are getting a little bit of a discount on Murray at 7,100. I mean, he's just been so good as well for fantasy this season. Over 24 DraftKings points in every game, just giving you such a high floor. Has a rushing touchdown, at least one rushing touchdown in all of their games except one. Didn't get one week 4 against the Panthers, but has a rushing touchdown in every game besides that one. He's just shown so much upside this season. He's a guy that doesn't have to go out there and throw for 350 yards to really hit his ceiling. Like, he can give you, 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then he can rush for 70, 80 yards and a touchdown. Like, he has elite rushing upside. He's been one of the best rushing quarterbacks so far this season. He's honestly been better than Lamar in terms of, rushing yards, I would say. I'm pretty sure he has more rushing yards on the season than Lamar does. Definitely has more rushing touchdowns. I'm pretty sure Kyler Murray leads the league in rushing touchdowns for a quarterback. I think he's tied with Carson Wentz, actually. So, Murray, when they get down to the goal line, they will let him run. They'll run read options with Murray. They'll get him rushing touchdowns. He just has so much upside here against the Seattle team that, you can definitely beat through the air. They've actually allowed the most passing yards per game this season. This game has one of the highest totals on the slate right now. It looked like it was going to get taken off the main slate. The Raiders and Bucks game was supposed to be the Sunday night game, but it got moved to 4 o'clock. And then the Seahawks-Cardinals game got pushed back to Sunday night. But DraftKings left it on their main slate, which I like. So we do have this game still. 56 total in that Sunday night game. Just a 3.5-point spread. Really just has all the makings to be a shootout. You're going to want pieces from this game. And I think Kyler Murray, at his DraftKings salary, is definitely one of my favorite plays just at the quarterback position. I do prefer him over Mahomes. I'd rather save salary and play Murray. Definitely would rather play him over Aaron Rodgers, Watson. Matt Ryan, I do like this week. 6,700 is a pretty, expensive price tag for Matt Ryan, but when he gets his full weapons, he can definitely give you upside, and we saw that last week against the Vikings. Got Julio back and just looked like a totally different quarterback. Completed 30 of 40 passes, 371 yards, 4 touchdowns, 34 DraftKings points. Gets another really good matchup this week against the Lions. Another game that has a very high total that is very likely to shoot out. Right now, this game has, I believe, a 56 or 55 total, 2-point spread. There's just so many I'm pretty sure there's 6 or 7 games on the main slate that have a total over 50 right now. There's 4 right there, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 7 games on the main slate. 7 of the 12 games on the main slate have over a 50 total. So we're going to see plenty of high-scoring games on Sunday, or at least we should. That Lions-Falcons game, I think, has the makings to be a shootout. Matt Ryan, I do have interest in at 6,700. I didn't want to skip over Deshaun Watson. I do want to mention Deshaun Watson. At 6,800, he's closely priced to Kyler Murray. So just talking straight up, if I'm only playing one lineup, I think I would rather play Murray over Watson. But if I'm playing multiple lineups on DraftKings, I would definitely want exposure to Deshaun Watson. Since Bill O'Brien got fired, I don't know if that's made much of a difference, but he's been really good for fantasy just the last 3 games since the firing. 23, 29, 35 DraftKings points. Just really look like a completely different player. Their offense has looked much better. Watson's thrown for 300 yards or more in 3 straight games. I think he continues that streak this week. I do like this game as well, like this Green Bay-Houston game, another game that has a very high total. Actually leads the slate right now at 57 total, 3.5-point spread. The Texans are at home as well, which is something I like. Deshaun Watson's always been a little bit better at home. Same with some of his receivers like Will Fuller. He's had better numbers at home as well. So I definitely like Deshaun Watson. And I think if you look at Yahoo's pricing, that's where Deshaun Watson looks the most appealing. Because if you look over here, like Kyler is $40. He's the most expensive quarterback. Russell Wilson's up there at $39. Josh Allen's $37. But then you have Deshaun Watson down here at $33. Same price as Ryan Tannehill. Like only $1 more than Cam Newton, only $1 more than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is kind of cheap on Yahoo too, but I would rather go to Deshaun Watson. I do like him a lot at his Yahoo salary of $33. And we'll talk about Will Fuller when we get to receiver. Will Fuller also a little bit too cheap on Yahoo. So it's kind of what I'm looking at quarterback, at least in that mid-range. There's some other guys that I think make sense for tournaments, like Justin Herbert, 6,400 against the Jags. I like that matchup a lot. Herbert's been really good since he took over as the starter, shown plenty of upside. Matthew Stafford's been disappointing, but another great matchup for him against the Falcons. I do expect Stafford to be pretty low owned, so he's someone you could consider in tournaments as well. Value-wise, value's kind of been thin at quarterback this season, and that's kind of the case again this week. There's 2 guys I have interest in, though, for value. Teddy Bridgewater at 5,800. Revenge game for him against the Saints. This is another game, the Panthers-Saints game, I believe, has like a 50 or 51 total. Should be high scoring. Panthers are like 7-point dogs here, so we would expect they are going to be playing from behind, which suits the passing game, which suits Bridgewater. Should see him have to throw a ton, especially late in this game if they are trailing. And at 5,800, I don't mind Teddy Bridgewater. I don't mind Joe Burrow either at 5,500. If I'm going cheap at quarterback under 6K, if you force me to play anyone under 6K, it would be Bridgewater and then Joe Burrow. But that's probably it for quarterback. I think really like Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, like these are the kind of guys I'm really keying in on this week. You could always go to Russell Wilson or Allen or Mahomes, but given how those guys are priced up, I think I would rather play Kyler over them for cheaper. But moving on to running back. Running back is definitely a position I want to pay up at. That's usually always the case, and it's definitely the case this week. Our most expensive running back is Alvin Kamara, 7,900 against the Panthers. I mean, just in my opinion, Kamara is probably one of the best plays on the slate. I know he's going to be really popular, but the matchup is just so good, and the price tag, you could argue, is too cheap. Like, he should probably be 9K, 9,500 in this matchup, and the fact that he's only 7,900 just makes him one of the best pay-up options on the slate. I think his floor is so high. I think if you're playing cash games and you don't play Alvin Kamara, like, you're pretty stupid. You probably shouldn't be playing cash games. I think Kamara is a lock for cash games. I think in tournaments, you want to have a good amount of exposure to him, even though he is going to be popular. Like, you can definitely play Kamara and still make, good contrarian lineups. Like, you could stack up Teddy Bridgewater and DJ Moore. Like, I think those 2 guys are going to be pretty low owned this week. And then you could run it back with Kamara. Easy way to get a little bit of a, different build, even with having Kamara in your lineup. Like, just because Kamara is going to be popular doesn't mean he can't be in the winning lineup. We could see him go out there and dominate against this Panthers run defense. I mean, the Panthers have been so bad against the run. They were terrible last season. They've been bad again this season. We know Kamara is a very efficient runner, gets great usage. He's going to get probably 10 to 15 carries. He's going to get a ton of work in the passing game. Right now, as I'm recording this video on Friday around 12 o'clock Eastern Time, we don't have an update yet on Michael Thomas, but there's a good chance that Michael Thomas does not play this week. He did not practice on Thursday. That'll be something to know. If Thomas winds up out, that's just going to make me like Kamara even more. I think he's a stone lock, 7,900. He's one of my favorite plays on DK, and he's expensive on Yahoo. They actually did a really good job of pricing him up over there. He is $43, but I still think if I can find the salary, I might want to try and get up to Kamara, especially because more value is opening up. Like, we got some news that Joe Mixon is out, which is going to open up some value. There's always guys on Yahoo you can find for cheap that, give you upside. So I'm going to be trying to pay up for Kamara on both sides. Even though he is really expensive on Yahoo, I just like the matchup so much. I love his upside against this Panthers team at home as well, which is something I like to see. Like, the Saints just as a whole offensively, normally they are better at home. Drew Brees has always been better at home. Kamara as well, I believe, has better home splits. So love Kamara at the top. I think Zeke, Derrick Henry, these are guys you could consider for tournaments. These guys have big-time upside. It is tougher matchups, though, for them. Like Zeke's facing a pretty good Washington front seven. Derrick Henry's facing one of the best teams defensively in the league in the Steelers. Those guys are more of like contrarian tournament plays. If you want to pivot off of Kamara, then you could look to them. Aaron Jones is another guy that I expect is probably going to be popular this week, but it's a really good matchup for him, and I definitely like Aaron Jones as well as a pay-up option. I think he's, my second favorite running back to pay up for behind Alvin Kamara. 7,200, again, like this is a price tag I think is too low, especially given this matchup against Houston. Houston has been killed on the ground this season. They've allowed the most rushing yards per game, like over, I think it's like 177. Yeah, 177 rushing yards per game. Just been killed through the ground. It is a smash spot for Aaron Jones. I think he has big-time upside here against this Houston team. We talked about it earlier. This game has a very high total. There's a lot of ways you can stack up this game. You could stack up Watson and Fuller, running back with Aaron Jones. You could stack up Watson, Fuller, Cooks, and then play maybe Jones and Devontae Adams. Like, there's just so many good plays in this game. I really like Aaron Jones. I think his upside is through the roof here. We know he gets good usage in both the running game and the passing game. If they get down to the goal line, Aaron Jones is going to be getting those goal line touchdowns. If they get behind, they're still going to involve Aaron Jones a ton. He's going to get 6, 7, 8 targets if they're playing from behind. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but Jones is pretty much game script proof, and against this bad Houston defense that can't stop the run, I like him a lot as well at 7,200. I'm definitely going to be trying to pay up for Kyler, Kamara, and then Aaron Jones. And then going cheap at receiver, we also have some cheap running backs that you could play, like his flex options. We'll talk about them in a second. But then in the 6K range, there's a couple guys I do like here. Kareem Hunt against the Bengals, I have a lot of interest in, especially like on Yahoo. Guys like Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis as well. These $20, $25, $28 plays, like this mid-range, I do have a lot of interest in that mid-range on Yahoo, and I think, Hunt against the Bengals. He hasn't really been that great since Nick Chubb went down, but he's had 2 really tough matchups against the Steelers and against the Colts. 2 very good teams against the run. Well, now he gets the Bengals this week, who have been terrible against the run. Last season they were bad. This season not much has changed. I definitely like Kareem Hunt at 6,800. I think Mike Davis, as a low-owned play, makes a lot of sense as well at 6,600. I don't see him being very popular at all. We know he's going to get monster usage. That's been the case since Christian McCaffrey went down. Like, Davis is getting 20 touches a game, playing over, 80, 85. I think last week he played like 90% of the snaps. Like, he's pretty much just playing Christian McCaffrey's role, which is, 90% of the snaps, gets all the goal line work, gets a good usage in the passing game. He had his first bad game last week against the Bears with just 12 DK points, but I would expect him to bounce back this week. A little bit of a better matchup, better game environment, higher total, faster pace game. I definitely like Mike Davis as well. Him and Kareem Hunt are by far my 2 favorite plays, like in the 6K range. But there's other guys. Like, there's just so many good plays at running back this week. This is definitely one of those slates where, no matter who you play, no matter how much you like your lineup, you're probably going to feel like there's someone you're leaving out. Like Ronald Jones, I like it a lot as well here against the Raiders. Ronald Jones has just been so good. Obviously, this game was not going to be on the main slate, but because it got moved to 405, they added it to the main slate. And I do have interest in Ronald Jones here against a Raiders team that has also really struggled against the run this season. Since Leonard Fournette, got hurt, Ronald Jones has been the workhorse for the Bucs. Just their last 3 games, he's got 26, 20, and 25 touches, just getting monster usage. I haven't seen an update yet on Fournette. I'm not sure if Fournette's going to play this week. I'm pretty sure he was inactive last week. Let me check that, though. I know he was questionable. He doesn't have an injury designation anymore. He was a full participant in Wednesday's practice. So Fournette will be back this week, but how heavily will he be involved? I'm not exactly sure. I still do expect Ronald Jones to get a pretty heavy workload, probably see close to 20 touches. So at 6,200, he's more of a tournament play. I think I feel a little bit better about a guy like Mike Davis, just because we know Mike Davis is going to get all the work. Kareem Hunt as well is locked into a pretty heavy workload. Fournette coming back does scare me a little bit, but still, I think Ronald Jones is definitely in play at 6,200. And then another injury we'll have to watch, or I don't even know if it's an injury, but we'll need to keep an eye on Le'Veon Bell if he's able to play. We did get word that Andy Reid was not sure if Le'Veon Bell was going to be active We'll have to see heading into Sunday. But if Le'Veon Bell's not ready to play, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 6,100 does make a lot of sense. Even if Bell's active, how heavily will he be involved in his first game? I'm not exactly sure. I think you could still play CEH, especially because, he's going to be low owned with all the other good plays at the top of the running back position. I don't see many people going to the 6K range. I don't see any of these guys getting massive ownership. You should see pretty low ownership on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and this is a guy that has shown upside. We saw what he did against Buffalo in that Tuesday or Monday night game. 26 carries, 4 catches. I mean, he got 30 touches in that game. They just heavily involved him. If Bell were to not be ready to play, then Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be locked in for another massive workload. I do want to talk about him on Yahoo because I think that's where he is the most appealing. If you look over here, he is very cheap on Yahoo. They priced him way down, all the way down to $17. I think that is just too cheap for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially if Bell is not able to play. Now, if Bell plays, maybe that'll lower my interest, but for now, we'll just have to keep an eye on that heading into Sunday. Even if he plays, I think you can still go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he is so cheap on Yahoo. He's only $17. He's the same price tag as Jamal Williams. He's the same price tag as Phillip Lindsay, Leonard Fournette. Obviously, you're going to play Clyde Edwards-Helaire over all those guys. I do like him, at his Yahoo salary. At 6,100 on DK, I would probably want Bell to be out to play him at that salary. But then value, we do have some pretty good value at running back this week. We have multiple guys under 5K that are in play. First off, Justin Jackson, 4,900, I think is definitely a guy we could look to. It was limited at Thursday's practice, but I'm not too concerned about that. Guys will be limited all the time during the week. I'm assuming Jackson's going to play this week. And we saw last week against the Saints when, Austin Eckler was out, they went with the two-headed committee of Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly. And Justin Jackson actually, was he was the number one in that game. He kind of took over the number one role. Got 15 carries, also got 5 catches, got 20 total touches. I believe Joshua Kelly finished with 12 touches. I mean, Justin Jackson just looked way better than Kelly in that game. I think Jackson has maybe earned himself a little bit more of a workload, I should say, a heavier role. I thought it was going to be a pretty even split, 50-50 between the two in that game against the Saints, and it was actually kind of 65-35 in favor of Jackson. I do have some question marks with Jackson just because, Kelly is still going to be involved, whereas we do have some other running backs that are cheap that we'll talk about that I think, are kind of locked into a heavier workload. But it's a really good matchup. The Jaguars have been pretty bad against the run this season. If you tell me Justin Jackson's going to get 20 touches, then I would definitely play him. That is a little bit of a question mark, though. Will he get 20 touches again? I'm not exactly sure. If Joshua Kelly comes out and, looks really good and is running hard and getting good runs and, just being effective, I don't know if Jackson's going to get as many touches, but he's still, if I was going to play one of him or Kelly, I think I would play Jackson. I do feel a little bit better about Jackson for 4,900. But then you have Kenyon Drake for 4,800 and a high total game against the Seahawks. He's coming off a massive game against the Cowboys. I'm not playing him because he's coming off a big game. I'm just playing him because, he's cheap. He's going to get probably 20 touches. I mean, he hasn't been efficient at all this season, but he's getting the work. I mean, 19 touches, 20 against the Cowboys. Only got 13 against the Panthers, but 19, 22, 18. He's going to get 18 to 20 touches. Even if they get behind, they'll use Drake a little bit in the passing game. I mean, he hasn't been nearly as involved in the passing game as I would like. His max targets this season is 2. He's gotten 2 targets 3 times so far this season. Week 1, Week 2, and then last week against Dallas. He's not getting 6, 7, 8 targets like I would like, but they still will, throw him some screens, will involve him a little bit in the passing game. I would say you probably want Arizona to be playing from ahead. That's probably the better thing for Drake, but this game's going to be so high scoring. You're going to see points scored on both sides. I think it's going to be pretty, you're going to see a lot of lead switching back and forth. Seahawks will take the lead, Arizona will score, Seahawks will score, Arizona will score. It's just going to be back and forth. Ton of points scored in that game. Definitely want to have exposure. I think Drake at 4,800 does make some sense as a cheap option. And then lastly, Giovanni Bernard, 4,500. So just before I started recording this video, we got word that Joe Mixon is going to be out Sunday for the Bengals, which should put Giovanni Bernard in line for a pretty heavy workload. I know the Bengals have some other guys, they have Samaje Perine, they have Travion Williams, who I've never heard of that guy, but I know Perine used to play for Washington a couple years ago. Went to Oklahoma. I mean, he showed upside when he was at Oklahoma. Hasn't really done much since he's been in the NFL. But Giovanni Bernard, we know he is going to, or he was involved even when Joe Mixon was, healthy and playing. Like, he was kind of Joe Mixon's backup. He would kind of come out and spell Joe Mixon whenever Mixon was either tired or just needed to come out. He's a guy that's, when he's gotten his touches, like, he has been efficient. He's a guy that really is good in the passing game. Like, they will involve him a ton in the passing game. He has a path to 7, 8, 9 targets, maybe even more if they're playing from behind. The matchup isn't the best. Cleveland has been pretty solid against the run this season. But 4,500 for Gio Bernard with Mixon out, starting, like, he has a path for 20-plus touches this week. I think if he comes out and is playing really well, like, they're just going to work Giovanni Bernard. Will he get Joe Mixon's workload? I'm not exactly sure, but Bernard has shown in the past that he can handle a heavy workload when needed, and that should be the case this week with no Joe Mixon at 4,500, especially because, Bernard is so involved in the passing game, which is so valuable on DraftKings. I think he's probably one of the better value running backs. I do prefer him over Justin Jackson and Kenyon Drake, just because I feel like his path to 20 touches is much more secure than those guys. Plus, Giovanni Bernard is a great pass catcher, can get a lot of, like, he could get 7, 8 targets, like I said. So I like him a lot at 4,500. I think he is one of the better values at the running back position now. If you want to go to him on Yahoo, I don't mind him over there. He is at $14. He's still cheap over there. But if I can find the $3, I think I would rather get up to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just because I feel like Edwards-Helaire probably has more upside than Bernard. But obviously, if Bell winds up playing, I might drop down to Bernard just because I'll have some question marks with Edwards-Helaire's workload if Bell plays. But yeah, running back, so many good plays top to bottom. At the top, I really like Kamara, really like Aaron Jones. In the mid-range, really like Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis. And then value-wise, I think Justin Jackson, Kenyon Drake, and especially Giovanni Bernard all make sense as value plays. But let's go ahead and move on to the receiver position. We'll talk about receiver now. So, at the top, you have a lot of great plays at the top. Me personally, in my main lineup, I'm going to be spending up at running back. I'm going to be spending up for Kyler, most likely at quarterback. So I'm not really going to have the salary to pay up at receiver. If I was going to pay up, though, I think my favorite play, it's close. It's probably Davante Adams at the top. Davante Adams, I do like this matchup against Houston. Great game environment, very high-scoring game, should be pretty fast-paced as well. And we know Davante Adams is going to get, just insane usage. I mean, he's going to get probably double-digit targets here, no matter if they're playing from ahead or behind. He didn't get much garbage time work in that game against Tampa Bay. That was one of his worst games of the season. I mean, he's only played 3 games this season. Erupted week 1 against Minnesota, got hurt week 2 against Detroit, and then his first game back from injury last week against Tampa Bay, 6 for 61 on 10 targets. I think we could definitely see a big ceiling game from Davante Adams here. At 7,900, I don't see him being too popular. I think people are going to pay up at running back this week. I do expect Kamara and Aaron Jones to get a lot of ownership. And while I do like those guys a lot, you could definitely get a little different in tournaments and maybe pay up for, Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, which I don't think's going to be that popular of a stack. And then you could running back with some of these Houston receivers who I do like. Will Fuller we'll talk about. We didn't hit on David Johnson, but you could definitely look to David Johnson as well. Really, I just want to target receivers that are in good matchups, that are going to be in high-scoring games, and that's kind of the case with Davante Adams. That's the case with DeAndre Hopkins as well. Even the Atlanta receivers like Ridley and Julio have a lot of interest in, especially in lineups where I maybe am looking to stack that game. You could definitely stack up Matt Ryan and Julio and then run it back with someone from the Detroit side like Kenny Golladay or TJ Hawkinson, 2 guys I do have interest in this week. So yeah, I really have there's nobody under 7K, even like from Diggs up, like there's none of these guys are bad plays in my opinion. Like there's no one I think is just going to absolutely bust. I think all these guys, even Michael Thomas if he plays, is in a really good matchup. So I really have no problems with any of these 7K and above receivers. It's just for me in my main lineup, I'm not going to probably be able to pay up here. I'm going to have to go cheap. And there are some cheap receiver values that I do like. But then the 6K range, I think, Will Fuller I like a lot here, 6,800. Against Green Bay, he is kind of priced up, but Will Fuller has just been so good this season. When he's healthy, I mean, he is a true wide receiver 1, can give you 20, 25 DK points any week. We know he's going to get massive volume, going to get a good amount of targets, probably double-digit targets, especially if they're playing from behind, which is a possibility. Will he see Jair Alexander? There is a possibility, but I don't get too worried about cornerback matchups, especially when it comes to elite number 1 receivers. These guys will find ways to get open. Deshaun Watson's going to find a way to get Will Fuller the ball. So far this season, in every game but one, Will Fuller's had either 100 yards or a touchdown, and he has some games with both 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, he's just been so good this season. I like him a lot. I think Yahoo is where he looks the most appealing because he is still way too cheap over there. Like, Yahoo just doesn't price up Will Fuller, and I'm not exactly sure why. Like, he's been underpriced on Yahoo pretty much the whole season. That's the case once again this week. I love stacking him up with Deshaun Watson. I think both those guys, are a little bit too cheap on Yahoo. I do like that quarterback receiver stack a lot, but if you want to play Will Fuller on DraftKings, I don't mind that either. Kenny Golladay, like in game stacked, I think makes plenty of sense. As a one-off, like in cash, I don't think I'd get to Kenny Golladay, but if I'm stacking up, Julio and Matt Ryan, and I'm looking to run it back from someone on the Detroit side, Kenny Golladay does make the most sense to me. Tyreek Hill, I think, is a little bit too cheap this week. I did want to mention him. Not the best game environment or matchup, I would say, going into Denver, but 6,400 is probably too cheap for Tyreek Hill, no matter who the matchup or what the matchup is. I think Hill is just too cheap at 6,400 this week. I don't mind him either. Keenan Allen, 6,200. I like against Jacksonville, especially if you're stacking up him or you want to play Justin Herbert. You can stack him up with Justin Herbert. Not many plays though that I like from Jacksonville, which is kind of the worry. Like if I'm stacking up Herbert and Allen, I don't know if there's really anyone from Jacksonville that I'm in love with this week. Maybe you could play James Robinson. Maybe you could play DJ Shark, but I would really only consider those guys in-game stacks. But then in the 5K range, Terry McLaurin, I talked about him in my first look video. I still like him a ton this week. Against Dallas, this is probably the best matchup that Terry McLaurin has had this season. Even in tough matchups, he's been able to produce big numbers, and now he gets to face Dallas, who can't stop anyone. We saw that Monday night against the Cardinals. Like, this Dallas defense is just so bad, and Terry McLaurin, a very high upside receiver, a guy that when he gets a good matchup can go out there and just smash, and I think we do get a pretty big game from Terry McLaurin. I like him a lot at 5,800. DJ Moore, I talked about in my first look video. I like a ton as well. 5,600. I think DJ Moore is too cheap this week. I think he is going to be low owned, which makes me have a lot of interest in him in tournaments. I think stacking him up with Teddy Bridgewater and then running it back with Kamara is something I am definitely going to be looking to do in a few of my main tournament lineups, just because DJ Moore is too cheap, man. Like, this is a guy that has big time upside. His target volume, it's been up in the air this season. He hasn't been getting as many looks. The targets were there weeks 1 and 2. They kind of dipped down weeks 3 through 5, but got up to 11 targets last week. Should be positive game script for the passing game. You would expect the Panthers are probably going to be playing from behind in this game. Marshawn Lattimore, I assume, will probably shadow Robbie Anderson, since Robbie Anderson's kind of been, the Panthers' #1 receiver this season, which should make for a better matchup for DJ Moore. But honestly, I don't really care too much about matchup when you're talking about a game that has over a 50 total, a game that should be played at fast pace. We should see a lot of points scored here. DJ Moore is probably my favorite play in the 5K range. I like Terry McLaurin a lot. When you factor in how low owned DJ Moore is most likely going to be, I really like him at 5,600. And on Yahoo, he's really cheap over there. Really hit on him in my first look video, and I still like him a ton. $18 for DJ Moore. Him and Will Fuller are probably two of my favorite receivers on Yahoo. I think both those two guys are just underpriced in my opinion. So, yeah, I like DJ Moore on both sides, but definitely Yahoo at 18. 5,600 on DK, though, I think is a really good price tag as well. But then once we get past like the 5K range, if we're talking about value plays, first value play I want to hit on is Christian Kirk, 4,900. I think I'm definitely most likely going to be stacking up Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk in my main lineup. Christian Kirk did not get much volume. He was about as efficient as you could be in that game against Dallas. He got 2 catches, and both of them went for touchdowns. He had an 80-yard touchdown on like a play where he just got open deep, and then he had a 6-yard touchdown on a little shovel pass inside or near the goal line. Only got 3 targets, but managed to produce 22 DK points on those 3 targets. Like, I know his volume hasn't been massive. He's not going to get 12, 13 targets because they have DeAndre Hopkins, and we know Hopkins is going to get a ton of volume. But Christian Kirk will still be heavily involved, especially like in a positive game script, in a likely shootout. If the Cardinals get behind, that's probably even better. We'll see them throwing a ton. This is already a pretty pass-heavy team to begin with, and we talked about it earlier. This Seattle team has been beat through the air. They've allowed the most passing yards per game this season. I assume Seattle's #1 corner will most likely be on DeAndre Hopkins, so maybe it becomes a little bit of a better matchup for Christian Kirk. This is a guy that I've always been, kind of high on. I did play him a good amount last season. I haven't played him much this season, but I'm definitely going to be on him this week. 4,900 I think is too cheap in a game with, a 56 total that's likely to shoot out. Really all the boxes are checked for Christian Kirk, so definitely going to be stacking him up with Kyler Murray. I don't think Christian Kirk is going to be too popular either because there are some other receivers, in this 4K range that I think will get some ownership. I think Mike Williams for 4,700 will get some ownership this week, coming off a big game. You could definitely look there. I don't mind him as a value. AJ Green looked a little bit better last week. He's kind of been up and down this season, but he's coming off a game where he did get 11 targets, 8 catches for 96 yards. Cleveland secondary hasn't been great this season. If you want to go to AJ Green, I don't mind him at 4,300. Randall Cobb, hashtag revenge game for him against the Packers, 4,300. Especially if you're looking to stack up that game, I think Randall Cobb makes some sense. But Deontay Johnson, I expect, will be pretty popular this week, 4,200 on DK. So this guy, weeks 1 and 2, obviously nothing went bad there. He played the whole game, 10 targets week 1, 13 targets week 2. And then week 3, he got hurt very early on in the game. And then week 5, he got hurt very early on in the game. So he's played two full games this season. And he's been pretty good in both those 2 games. 10 DK points, 23 DK points. And then he's played 2 games and he got hurt in both those games very early on. So we haven't really seen Deontay Johnson kind of been, unleashed yet. I mean, he's been hurt a lot this season. I believe concussion week 3, and then I think it was a back injury that he suffered in week 5. Assuming he doesn't get hurt here, 4,200, I think it is too cheap for Deontay Johnson. I mean, we know this Steelers offense, they will spread the ball around. They have a lot of guys. They have Juju. They have Chase Claypool, who's been emerging. They still have Eric Ebron. They have James Washington. They have Deontay Johnson. They can hand it off to Connor. Like, they do have a lot of guys on the offense that, can produce, I should say. Big Ben, I don't think he's just going to lock onto one guy. Like, you're not going to see I don't think we're going to see anyone on this offense consistently getting double-digit targets every week just because they have so many weapons. But Deontay Johnson still should be looking at probably 6 to 8 targets. And for 4,200, I do like him as a value play. I think I would rather play Christian Kirk if I can find the salary for Kirk, especially if Johnson's going to be very popular. But if you need to save some salary at receiver, which I'm most likely going to need to do because I like paying up for running back, I like paying up for Kyler, Deontay Johnson is definitely in play at 4,200. I think him and Kirk under 5K are probably my 2 favorite values if I am going cheap at the receiver position, which, like I said earlier, I will most likely be doing. I've heard some people talking up Marvin Jones against the Falcons. It is a really good matchup, great game environment, but Marvin Jones just hasn't done anything this season. I mean, we know this is a guy that can always break out and put up a big game. I probably won't be going there, though. I'd probably rather play Deontay. I'd rather get up to Christian Kirk. I don't mind Marvin Jones, especially like in game stacks, but there's other guys I'd rather go to, I think. So that's my thoughts at receiver. Let's go ahead and break down tight end just real quick before we end the video. Tight end is pretty straightforward for me this week. I don't think I'm going to be able to pay up here. This is another position where I'm probably going to need to be looking for some salary relief to save some salary. Sure, you could always pay it for Kittle or Kelsey. If I had to play one of those two, normally I prefer Kittle just because I think Kittle gives you like that 150-yard, 2-touchdown upside. Kelsey, on the other hand, obviously Kelsey has massive upside as well, but the Chiefs do have a lot of weapons, whereas San Francisco, Kittle's like their number one. Just feed the ball to George Kittle, get him 12, 13 targets. It is a pretty bad matchup for both guys. I mean, both guys aren't in great spots on the road against the Patriots, on the road against Denver. But if I had to play one, I think I would rather go to Kittle. Then you have some of these guys like in the 5K and 4K range. I think this is where we're going to find our value plays, our cheap options. Noah Fant, I do like a lot at 4,800. Coming back from injury, he was a full participant in Thursday's practice, so he's going to be full go here. He's only played 4 games this season, but when he's been healthy, I mean, Noah Fant has shown upside, and he's shown, pretty good target floor. Like, he should get 6 to 8 targets pretty much every week. This Denver team is pretty bad. We know they're going to be playing from behind most weeks, and that is very likely going to be the case this week against the Chiefs. I mean, right now, even at home, Denver is, let me see, Denver's 10-point dogs even at home. Not the highest total here at 46, but Noah Fant should be peppered with targets with the Broncos most likely playing catch-up in this game. At 4,800, I think he's one of the more high upside tight ends in this 4K range. His floor is probably higher than a lot of guys as well. Like, Jonnu Smith's been good this season, but I don't love the matchup against Pittsburgh. Robert Tonyan, I think, is definitely interesting at 4,600 against Houston. Assuming he plays this week, he's a guy that has shown upside. in a very high scoring game that should see a lot of points scored. You could definitely look there. With Devontae Adams coming back, that obviously hurt Tanyan. He only got 4 targets last week after coming off a massive game against the Falcons Monday night when Devontae Adams was out. But still, he should get pretty good looks in the red zone. Probably going to get 5 to 6 targets for 4,600. Not too bad at a very bad tight end position, this week. So Fant, Tanyan, Hunter Henry. I think he's probably going to be the chalk tight end. In cash games, I think Hunter Henry would probably be the guy that I would look to. He does feel like one of the more safer options. Hunter Henry is never a guy that's going to go out there and get 30 DraftKings points, but he's probably going to get 6 to 8 targets. He'll get looks near the red zone. He can get you 6 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown, get you 15, 16 DK points. And if he does that, you're going to feel pretty good at 4,500. Tight end's kind of been a position this season. Like, nobody has really broken the slate yet. Like, there's never been. I know Kittle had a big game, but that was on Sunday night. It wasn't on the main slate when he put up 43 fantasy points. Like, we haven't seen a tight end yet go for like 35 and just kind of be a guy that you have to have. I don't think we're going to see that this week. I think even if you get 8 to 10 points from your tight end, like, that could be good enough. I'm looking to go cheap here. I like Fant. I like Hunter Henry. I don't mind Hayden Hurst either. If Jordan Atkins is out, I don't mind Darren Fells. I mean, Fells has been good lately with Atkins out, getting good looks, got 7 targets last week. Again, Green Bay, Houston, high-scoring game. Should see a lot of points scored there. Austin Hooper, he's been trending in the right direction. 7 targets, 6 targets, 10 targets just the last 3 games. Double-digit DK points in 3 straight. Against Cincinnati, pretty good matchup. You could definitely play him at 4K. Really, I'm just looking to save money at tight end this week. I don't really see myself paying up, especially because I'm trying to pay up at running back and at quarterback. So yeah, I think that's just my thoughts on the tight end position. If I had to sum it up real quickly, I think my favorite plays overall would probably be Noah Fant, 4,800, Hunter Henry, 4,500, and then probably Austin Hooper at 4K. Like, I think those are the guys I like the most at the tight end position this week. But yeah, guys, I think we broke it all down for this Week 7 slate. I know this video is pretty long. I think I've been talking for like 40 minutes, but I wanted to give you guys as much information as I can, as much analysis as I can. I hope the video did help you. If it did help, be sure to hit that like button before you get out of here. Hit the subscribe button as well. Be sure to click that notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. And if you do enjoy these videos and if they help you out a lot and you want to get more content from me, you can check out what I have to offer on Patreon. That is linked down below in the description. If that does interest you, be sure to check it out, link down below, and see all that I do have to offer over there. But best of luck on this Week 7 slate, guys. I hope you win some money. I think we covered everything, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next video. Good luck this week. Peace.